beautiful delivery to Cameron, who's going to have a bounce. He's going to steady from 40 out and he's going to drive it home. Itch, Bailey, quick, Dunkley, Rayner squeezes it on the left and he buries it. He's in goal-kicking form, is Cam Rayner.
Kick from Zorko. Hands it to Hugh. And a huge goal from Huey, who just keeps doing it.
If King could get on the end of one here, he's loping on after it. Oh, what about the spoil? Intent, courage, he's pumped Zorko.
That's one of the great scenes.
He absolutely loves giving it to the little brother down the highway. Oscar McInerney easily beats Andrew. Lohman gets it, plucks it. Something from nothing. He's jagged at Lohman.
Possession 31 for Josh Dunkley. Puts a cherry on top. And to the rest of the teams hunting finals, welcome to your nightmare.
It is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with JB and Patrick back again after a huge Q clash, and it's all thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. Check those guys out at hoponbrewerytours.com.au or crispcoms.co. You can get all the links at one special place, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, rate, all that sort of stuff. Watch us on YouTube, do all the stuff, get in contact. We love chatting to people, sending questions, all that sort of gear. But 8 in a row, and Carlton losing on the Friday night means for however many weeks in a row, the door's open for us to just move on up the ladder. And now we sit in top 2, Patrick.
8 straight. Would you believe it? No, not really. But here we are, and it's great. It's really good. I don't think either of us in our most optimistic, brain chemical benders would have thought that this would have been plausible.
No, certainly not. I mean, we've been pretty open about that. You know, you asked us 2 months ago. I said, we'd be lucky to scrape into the 8. Maybe more likely finish 9th to 12th. But here we are, top 2, and destiny is in our own hands. Still plenty of tough games on the way. The Saints are playing good footy, as are the Giants, and they're our next 2 opponents, so we'll have to see how those matches go. But this time last week, we were sitting here talking completely unaware that we were about to lose our last 2 key defenders in Harris Andrews and Darragh Joyce. We finished the podcast, we sent it out to the people. A few hours later, Harris out with HIA. And then the next day, Darragh Joyce out with a facial fracture. So, Eric had to play centre half back.
Are we sure? So, also obviously Chris Fagan was on 360 as well that night. No Mark Robinson, so for those keeping score. But I don't know if you noticed, but he said we can't seem to buy a key defender at this point in time, and that was when the Harris Andrews thing had just been sort of announced.
Yeah.
We're assuming he probably know about Joyce. He knew about Joyce at that point in time, because that read a little bit strange to me. Although we were missing 4, it seemed like, looking back retrospectively, that kind of had more meaning than I thought it did. So maybe the writing was on the wall there, but we just didn't know where to look. So, that was absolute panic stations, man. I think everyone was theory crafting, trying to figure out what the hell to do. People talking about some guy called Zane. Obviously Hipwood.
Zane Zakostelski, who is a key defender on the list, but is not ready for AFL yet. So I do remember saying very early on in the year, I think I remember this, it must have been week 2 or 3, I said, if Darragh Joyce is getting a game, it means things have gone horribly wrong. And now we're at the point where we're like, please get Darragh Joyce back because things have gone so horribly wrong.
Yeah, you know what do they say? You don't know what you've got until it's gone. And Darragh Joyce with the broken jaw. Now, broken jaws are a weird one. So I think it's if it's in the kind of under ear bit or in the chin, not so good. But if it's in this sort of chin strap bit, not as bad. So
it is one
hopefully
of those
one of those.
Yeah, it could be one of those ones where he's out for 10 weeks, or if he's back next week, it wouldn't be that surprising as well, because it could be one of those things where it's he can't break it anymore. It may hurt, but whatever. There's absolutely no extra risk of playing him, but he is sort of TBC at this stage, so it is a bit of a wait and see. But Harris will be back next week, which is very thankful. I mean, providing he passes all the concussion protocols, but the talk sounds like it's more likely than unlikely at this stage. So maybe we'll have Eric and Harris as our two key defenders, or maybe it'll be Harris and Froggy, who put together another great performance, and we'll have a chat about Froggy later because he's got a big week coming up. But so there were obviously some changes. The one that we forecast didn't happen. Henry Smith was sort of forced to keep his spot because we needed as many tall timber as we could. We did drop Bruce, which was a bit of a surprise. I guess the run of these plucky young kids is coming to a bit of an end at the moment. So Bruce got dropped, and obviously we lost the two key defenders. We brought in Jackson Pryor. I guess we'll have a chat about him. McKenna came back into the team as the sub. Logan Morris also came back in as well. So it left Joe as our sort of most experienced key forward with Logan and Henry Smith. And then we obviously had a makeshift backline that held their own. And although it did look like at times Ben King was really going to get a hold of things, they
broke even.
Yeah, they did in the end. So Ben King got off to a good start, wasn't able to put it on the scoreboard, thankfully. But as the game wore on, I thought Eric played that role quite well.
Yeah, he definitely worked into it, but it's a weird one. He kind of plays it like a forward, doesn't he? It's strange. It's strange seeing that happen, and I bet everyone was like losing their mind when his first involvement was giving away a 50-meter penalty. So, kind of funny, but a bit sort of. I mean, a lot of people are talking it up like it's a thing that we should be doing long term, which I think is insane, to be honest. But
yeah, I think that's off the back of seeing Rory Lobb doing what Rory Lobb's doing and going, well, why can't everyone just do this?
Yeah,
he certainly didn't go
I
back.
Wouldn't exactly call Hipwood a failed forward in the sense of the other ones that have done that. Yeah. He's quite a good forward, and I think we'll get onto it. But yeah, seeing Brucey out of the team, we were talking when Ashcroft was coming back in, sort of who would be the one to sort of drop out, and I think we were a little bit split on who would. But it almost seems like Revel has been kind of the collateral damage in that over time, which, it is what it is. I think Ashcroft he's there or thereabouts. He's not quite where he was. I think he's trying to play a little bit too quick, but the more games, I think, the better he's going to sort of end up being later on in the season.
He'll get there, and then by the time next year rolls around, he'll have a proper pre-season under his belt, because he still hasn't had a pre-season yet. He's gone straight into AFL system, done his knee, missed out on another pre-season. Now he's trying to come back from that knee. So get a pre-season into him, he'll be better for it and for the game day experience. So he will get there, but it is taking him a minute to find that form. And I don't think anyone... I guess we all hoped that he'd come back and just go straight back into the Will Ashcroft we knew last year, but it is going to take a little bit.
But looking at the first quarter, it's sort of... Hardwick said it in his press conference that they didn't really put the scoreboard pressure on that they deserved, which is totally fair. I'd argue as well that scoreboard ability to put that scoreboard pressure on doesn't really exist without some like really uncharacteristic kind of, I'd say, like unforced turnovers. Yeah. There was a couple from Lockie. There was one from McCluggage, the brain handball, just like pretty basic skill errors that seemed like we don't normally make them. And when you're looking at it going, okay, we've got a makeshift tall backline, you'd think the ground ball and the disposal out would be like the good part. And it was like, stop giving them the ball, like right there. Don't give them the ball there, please, because they're getting shots. And Max King was...
Ben King.
Kicking at goal like Ben King was harnessing his best Max King, assuming Max King is currently sitting on a recliner whilst taking shots at goal. So good for us that he can't seem to kick the ball straight. But yeah, the first quarter was, we were lucky to be ahead, but I think that's just a little bit of class that we had against a kind of manic craziness. So how did you make the first quarter other than that?
Yeah, I mean, you basically hit the nail on the head there. We were lucky to be in front. I think just good goal kicking. I mean, good to get Charlie on the board nice and early. Huey hitting the scoreboard as well, and Rayner as well stepped up. Bailey hit the scoreboard across the day. So we had plenty of scoring options, which was great. But yeah, I thought the Gold Coast generally played the better footy for the first quarter. But yeah, we were lucky to stay in touch with them. It's been the case of a couple of games with us against the Gold Coast. They've had patches where they've played really good footy, but we've been able to just stay in it with them. Obviously, last year was a different story. But yeah, I think just we obviously had more players at the stoppage. I guess we just tried to flood the midfield a little bit more to try and keep it out of the back line as much as possible. But I think it did throw off our structure a little bit, and whether that was a direct link to all the turnovers or anything like that, I'm not super sure.
It led to a quite of like one-out contest as well, which is sort of almost more scary when you're sitting there looking at it going, all right, we've got Hipwood on King, and you're one out. Sort of, you don't have the ability for people ghosting across, and that kind of changed. And Hippie grew into the game as it went on. It's just so funny seeing it in that kind of a situation. Like, how did it get there?
Yeah,
what's going on?
And all the commentators were saying that Hipwood needs to move and play back shoulder because Ben King's just getting out the back or just getting the sit out the back, and obviously he took a huge screamer on poor Froggy in the start of the third quarter. But yeah,
that's it. I could basically take a screamer over a 10-year-old. And size difference is what can happen. So.
Once that adjustment was made, he was definitely better. He got himself a goal as well, which is great for your key defender.
A bit of Justin Lepich on Wayne Carey there. Send him the other way. But yeah, no, like we kind of put it on him in the second quarter, and just our efficiency. Like they were quite good. Like they got beaten up around the ball, Gold Coast, but they were still pretty handy with it. Bailey Humphrey, like,
he had a game.
He could be something utterly amazing, but he seems to himself get in the way of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like something's not quite working for him. Yeah. You could easily see him kind of like flitting into the let's look at Gold Coast in terms of like where Richmond were with Hardwick. Because I think that the current Gold Coast list is more talented than probably the one Hardwick had before the premierships at Richmond. They're probably lacking some key pillars. But like you could see Bailey Humphrey kind of being the Dustin Martin of that team, I think, in the next few years. Because I think their level of talent, once the coaching gets into them, they'll be a really, really good team.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think also there's an element of like Hardwick looking at it going, oh, this is a slightly longer project than I kind of realized, because he's now not even talking about like, obviously he's like, we need to play finals this year. He's also like, maybe next year we'll play finals. It's not even a certainty to him. And his language is very interesting when he talks about the Gold Coast. It's still them. It's not us. Whereas with Richmond, he was always us. And, if you listen to Fagan, he's always talking about us. We need to grow. Whereas there's still a distinction with Hardwick. We're talking about, they need to grow, which, yeah, that's one to watch, because I wonder if he starts talking about them in a collective sense, that's when things start going well for them. I don't know. Who gives a shit? The third quarter was good, I assume. Well, no, tell me about the third quarter.
Well, the second quarter was the second and fourth were definitely our best quarters. The third, they got off to it was very similar to Sydney last week, where we built ourselves a buffer, and then very early they just pegged it back. Now, it wasn't obviously as dramatic, but they got 2 or 3 quick goals on the board, and made it a little bit more uncomfortable for us. And then we managed to sort of even things out and eventually kick away in the last quarter and a half of the game. It could have been more if that Dunkley goal wasn't overturned by a very, very slight snick. And I thought he had a great game as well. We had Berry go to Anderson, kept Anderson pretty quiet, which was good because they were flashing up the stats of Noah Anderson, like him at home versus him away. And I guess it's probably pretty symptomatic of a lot of the Gold Coast team, but he's a completely different player at People's First Stadium than he is anywhere else. Rowell kicked a goal, but he wasn't super influential. Obviously, Tukes are not there at the moment. Swallow did a good enough job on Neil for a bit, but just obviously couldn't keep it up, and Neil got away and had Pretty quintessential Lachie Neale game, 35 touches, a goal and 10 clearances in the end. So obviously our midfield was where it was won and lost. So, and Huey chimed in on the scoreboard as well, as did Rayner again, Bailey, as I mentioned just before. So, yeah, the third quarter they brought it back, but then we just sort of steadied the ship a little bit. We changed the ball movement and the tempo to suit us where we needed it to, and just keep the heat off when we had to. And Starcevic even had a running shot on goal, which would have been bloody beautiful if it had gone through. But it was just the class.
Interesting looking at the. Sorry, go on.
It was just the class in the end, and the Zorko spoil is probably the moment of the day for most Lions fans. Just because Ben King had that great start on Hippie, he took the screamer on Froggy, and then to have arguably the smallest man on the field, just a clean spoil on Ben King, and then celebrated like he's kicked the winning goal in a grand final.
I reckon so. The watch for that, I reckon, is the fact that Zorko's not the first. It's Starcevic that really leads that.
Yeah.
So he gets into Zorko first. The thing I also love, and we'll know this, is Jackson Pryor goes straight to Ben King. Straight to Ben King. So it's interesting when they've talked about it all year, the whole like Gold Coast versus home, Gold Coast away, to have the amount of like leading possession getters that we had. I know Flanders had 33, but on the whole, to have virtually 8 of the top 10, and sort of all of the direct opponents of all of the players to kind of outscore them, and our ability to just kind of take the heat out of the game with going to the kick mark thing. It was an amazingly mature performance, I think.
Oh yeah, all things considered. I mean, we will get to the questions later, and there's a question that's probably going to directly address this, but for a team with not a single recognised tall key defender other than Ryan Lester, who's what?
Not really. You wouldn't really pick him as a key defender if you didn't have to.
Yeah. Coming up against a team that is, starkly different at home as they are away. They've beaten some good teams at People's First Stadium. They just toppled Port Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, and Port Adelaide are playing very good footy at the moment. So we obviously went in as favourites, and I guess your average footy fan would probably just look at the teams on paper and go, "Oh yeah, Brisbane will win that." Just form and everything. But it was a much tougher game. It was a really gritty game, and we had to grind it out. But yeah, very mature performance, and good to get that win for sure.
I think Gold Coast would probably be kicking themselves that they omitted Jed Walters. Like, that was a weird one.
That was strange, wasn't it?
For me. I understand that Moyle had been in really good form and they wanted to get Witts back in the team. But did Moyle give you more than what... And I know they're different. Like, I know Jed Walters is kind of that kind of power, taller forward. But, like, stick Jed Walters up forward as even more threat. He's a good player. He's going to be really good. So... yeah, I don't know what they were really thinking. It seemed like their game plan and ours. Fagan completely outcoached whatever was going on with how he picked the team and what he wanted them to do. So really, really happy and really impressed, I think.
What did you make of Jackson Pryor? And as Fagan said in his post-match, it was probably his best AFL level performance. Still,
I think if we're going to put him in, so he had his career in the wing and his career at halfback, I still think that performance down in Tasmania against Hawthorn, where he kicked 3 goals, was his best. But obviously that one's locked away lovingly in my mind. It's funny because early on in the game, his kicking was really good, and you're sort of like, he's having a good game, and then he turned the ball over a couple of times and made a couple of errors, and he's sort of like, fucking hell, dude. But sometimes there's only so much you can do, particularly when you're dealing with a young forward line leading towards Henry Smith and Morris, with Big Joe, who's, work rate's not always a non-negotiable. I think that's where missing Hipwood can kind of go, all right, maybe that's where a little point of difference was. But I thought Pryor was really good, and this is the kind of thing where I think he could, or I thought he could fit into this role this season more so. The ability to be almost similar to Froggy in that you can play a bit taller, play a bit shorter. You could lock down. You kind of hard at the contest, and you can dispose of the ball, if not super accurately, at least long and flat, and to kind of contest. But yeah, good for me. And if looking at who we've got and looking at who we're playing coming up, I would be surprised if he came out of the team.
Yeah, I guess the only other option is Answorth. I guess if you're looking at Pryor, Answorth, and McKenna as 3 trying to fit into 2, I guess at the moment I'd probably have McKenna sitting out. But you know me, I'm wary about Jackson Pryor. So it was a good game. He definitely had a couple of moments that I'm sure he'd like to take back. But all in all, I thought he played pretty well. So it'll be a bit of a wait and see.
Yeah, I think if we're still lacking in tall stocks, I think he'll stay in the team. But it's the sort of thing where I think if Joyce or Jack Payne come in, I think he'll drop out.
Mm.
That would be my sort of read on it. Because, yeah, I think at the moment I'm happy with McKenna sitting out. And I think a lot of us are, and a lot of us were kind of a little bit freaked out when he found himself on the field and kind of a few strange kicks as almost the first few things he did. Old Irish, but yeah, Shadow Brain, he got subbed out. Do we know, was there an injury with that, or was it just a...
I think it was just a tactical thing, and it wasn't Shadow's best game for sure. After the highs of last week with some heroic moments in the last quarter, he certainly didn't get off to a great start. He obviously butchered that handball. There was another one where he slipped over at the wrong moment. He just had a few little things where you just sort of like, ooh, this is far from Shadow's best game. So I think it was a tactical thing more than anything else, and because it was a halfback for a halfback. So I don't think there was any injuries there or anything. I think it was just hey, it's just not your day today, mate. So take a knee.
But no, it was all in all, and we kicked a few towards the end. There was a bit of a cheap free kick on Neil, and then, was what it was. By the end of it, Lohman kind of really, he does what he seems to do, crops up towards the end of the game with a goal, and it's just like, okay, cool. That's exactly what we needed.
A nice little barrel.
Yeah, the old mongrel barrel. So it was good. Yeah, and Rayner and McCluggage really helped. I think had our midfield not helped out with the goals that we needed, and we didn't win the game, we would be wondering the Logan Morris, Henry Smith, Danaher, the forward group wasn't quite right, and that was probably indicative by the lack of marks inside 50 we had, and we got an extra one in junk time to Dunkley, so that kind of pads it out a little bit. But yeah, I don't think Henry Smith is something that I necessarily would like to pursue this year. I think he's definitely makes really good space, and he's really handy and moves really well for a big guy. But I just think as soon as we get some more key defenders stocks coming back, I'm throwing Hipwood back up forward. And
yeah, for sure.
But that's just me. Apparently every analyst, as we were saying, I think before we started, that the Rory Lobb experiment has just made it hunting season for key forwards going back, and whatever. I guess it's in vogue. It's the thing everyone's talking about. At this rate, Sydney will have all of their key forwards back because they're all pretty useless. So,
I think Fagan will probably like to see some key defenders come back as well, so we can play the structure that we know and are certainly used to. But 8 in a row. Just every week that goes by, I think to myself, it can't last. And obviously, like I said, we've got some pretty tough games coming up, and we'll have a bit more of an in-depth chat about St Kilda a bit later on. But it's just sort of, we're not playing the best footy. Like yesterday was arguably better than a couple of the other weeks. Obviously, a hard-fought win against Sydney, which was a great game as well. But we've just sort of scraped over the line against some of these teams like Adelaide and Melbourne, and I just don't we are getting away with it, and by technicality, we are the form team of the competition by, every sort of metric.
By the skin of our teeth over Hawthorn.
Yeah, but like Hawthorn, I would say is playing better footy. The Dogs at the moment playing better footy as well. So, it's St Kilda next week, Giants week after, and then Collingwood at the G, and who knows what that's going to bring up. And Essendon finish off at the
Bad
Gabba.
memories. That's what's going to bring up.
Yeah.
Bad memories. But no, I think we're doing just enough, and we're kind of we're showing a level of like maturity that I don't know that we have. Like throughout the weekend, you said it last week. You said, it wouldn't be a bad time to drop a game this week. And some other people have said that. I don't really get that. I don't understand the idea of, because I was a bit staunch the other way of saying, like, why would we want to drop a game if that dropped game is the difference between finishing second and finishing third? I don't necessarily think we're in the need for a reality check, given that we had the ultimate reality check in a grand final last year. I think everyone knows that we're not invincible. And I think that the knowledge of that is leading us to be kind of grittier in these games. So I want them to win the whole way through.
I mean,
I don't need a reality check, man.
I'm not saying I don't.
Fucking need.
I'm not saying I don't want that. Everyone wants that. It just seems so out of reach. And maybe you're right as well. We had a series of reality checks to kickstart the year as well, and maybe that's all been part of this whole thing. That's led to this last 8 weeks. But I don't know. I guess it just seems unsustainable. Is probably what I'm saying. So, we've got to. Regardless, we've got a bye coming up in 4 weeks, so that will be very, very handy because, looking at the timeline, Payne should be back for probably that last game, and then the bye. I'd like to get a game in him before finals if possible. So it's just, like I said, it just seems unsustainable the way we're just sort of just getting over the line against some of these teams.
I suppose it's, if we had lost one of the games that we had, performing the way we did, if we'd lost one of the games, whether it was a Sydney one or whether it was, whatever, we wouldn't be we'd be like, we're, I just keep winning. Keep fucking winning. Just keep winning. St Kilda are going to prove a little bit of a difficult taskmaster this week, I think.
Definitely.
But before we get on to that, should we do some votes thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours?
We bloody should, thanks to hoponbrewerytours.com. Let's do some votes. All right, I went my 3-2-1 last week, and it turns out you said they were exactly the same. So let's hear your 3-2-1 today, and let's see if they match up.
Okay, so I've gone a little bit different. I went Wilmot the 1.
Sure.
I went Dunkley the 2.
Sure.
And then, strangely, I went Ryan Lester the 3.
That is strange.
And the reason for that is because Lester basically played as our defensive captain, and given it was strung together with, like, random bits of assorted wicker chair and goodwill, I think probably what he did on field with his leadership was exceptionally important. And we heard a lot about him being kind of like a leader in the twos when he was kind of in purgatory back a few years. And this is probably him doing that, but on a grander scale. So he gets my best on ground. Yeah. And I'm just going with that purely on the magic of the frog.
It's weird, because as I said before, it was a quintessential Lachie Neale game where he had all of the ball, hit the scoreboard, 10 clearances, all the numbers probably say that he may get another 2.
Oh, he'll get 3. He'll get 3 Brownlow votes, for sure.
But we've both left him out because I went Dunkley the 3. I thought he was amazing. Zorko the 2 and Cam Rayner the 1. I think Cam Rayner's last 6 weeks have been really, really good. Really, really good. And I think whatever this magic formula, the secret herbs and spices that Fagan's found for his role is working really well.
Fibonacci midfield time.
Yeah. Is working really well. And he's kicking goals in clutch times. He's got a confidence and he seems to know his limitations of what he can and can't do. And he's using all of that to the best of his ability and playing some really good footy.
Beautiful stuff. I like it. I like our spread, and I think You can't just give Lachie Neale 3 votes every week. It's boring. And he's going to win the fucking thing anyway. So at least we'll have some fun. We should do, I reckon next season we should do like a not including Lachie Neale votes.
Sure. The Neil-less votes.
Yeah. Like I know they do that with other stuff. It's like, highest finisher without, I don't know, I think I'm getting into weird like gambler territory, which I don't really know anything about. So let's not talk about that. Beautiful stuff.
All right, let's have a quick look at the twos who their winning run has come to an end. They got absolutely done in by the Suns in the VFL, and it's probably no surprise. With all the injuries that's happened to the senior team, it's going to have a flow-on effect to the VFL. And you're talking about Jed Walter before, who got dropped down to the twos. Well, he had a stinker in the twos as well. Now, I don't know if that's because of game time and the fact that he may have only played half just in case he was an emergency for the game later on in the day, but he kicked 0 goals, 1 and 6 touches. So that tells me he probably didn't play a full game. Whereas Alex Sexton kicked 5 goals, Fiorini 32 touches, 7 clearances, 1 goal, 1. Best on for us was Dev with 14 clearances from 30 touches and 11 tackles. Pretty complete game from Dev, who is just obviously
chomping at the bit.
Just
chomping at the bit.
Not putting a foot wrong in the twos. JL Tunstall, who, at the start of the year, it was weird in those preseason games. It was like Jimmy Madden and James Tunstall seemed to be like, hey, we're getting ready to put these guys in the team. And they just...
Same as Sharpie as well. Just the 3 of them.
Haven't really been seen. So you wonder what their futures are going to hold. Bruce Revel back to the twos, 26 touches and 2 goals as well. So he had a great game. So he'll probably be back in the seniors in the next little bit.
In some capacity, yeah.
Yeah. Luke Beacon, another great game as well. I love him. Hit the scoreboard as well, 2 goals from 19 touches. So all in all, a pretty poor performance from the twos, but it's bound to happen. I mean, they still hit a high score. They still put 96 points on the board, but they went down by 6 goals. So, just the injuries mounting up and having that flow-on effect. But still in with a shout for a top 4 finish for the VFL, so that's good.
I think I'm really enjoying the fact of guys that are going back down to the twos and bouncing. Yeah, that's been great. Like Logan Morris did it last week, Bruce this week. I'm sure someone else did it that I can't remember, but it's been good. It's the idea of like, nah, I've got stuff to show, and I think you summarized it really well of saying like getting that level of AFL experience and taking that back to the reserve level like is really impressive. So good for Bruce. Hopefully we see him back. I like him.
Everyone loves Bruce. Yeah. Everyone loves Bruce. So yeah, I think he'll be back in the fold sooner rather than later. Now, change is going to be a tough one this week, and who knows, because by the time we bloody stop recording today, there may be one of those horrific injury updates coming later from Brisbane Lions socials and say, oh, now Froggy's out. So any changes?
Have you got wooden floorboards there?
I've got.
We've been through this before.
Big wood desk here that I'm tapping here.
Okay, good. Tap it. Taparoo.
Harris obviously straight back in. Now, whether that means we keep Eric down back or move him back forward and use Harris and Froggy as our key defenders, I don't know. Or are we still holding on to Smith and Logan Morris?
So the current situation at St Kilda is what? Membry, Caminiti and...
Sharman.
Sharman.
Who had a great game.
Yeah. And then we've obviously got to worry about Rowan Marshall rolling forward. So they have got a bit of tall down there, but yeah, I mean, my changes is probably Smith coming out and Eric going forward and then Harris coming back. Yep. That's probably all I'm doing. If Joyce comes back, then to me, Pryor drops out. But that's really all I think I would do.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Joyce is probably a couple of weeks away, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just trying to cover all the bases in case it's like genetic freak fixes jaw with microbes, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, he's in. Beautiful, great. But I think we could probably cover it with two, like, with Paris and then Frog, and then the collective effort.
Yeah, I think that will probably be the change. I think that seems like the most likely, or some form of that. Yeah, Pryor is probably, maybe, I don't know. McKenna again. They're sort of just like a couple of fringy players, depending on what happens. So
I hope that Brain doesn't come out for McKenna just because he had sort of like a half a poor performance.
yeah,
I think the level of versatility that Brain and Pryor give us is more valuable than McKenna right at the moment.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. So I mean, Answorth's still there as well as an option. Who, he was in the team before his injury, and then just can't get back into it now. It seems to be the case for poor Noah.
Yeah, I think with him he's just a slight bit shorter than Starcevic and the other two I just mentioned. So I think there's an element of, if we had our stocks in tools, there's more room for a smaller kind of ground ball player.
Yeah.
Because Noah Answorth's ground ball is really good, and that's something that I know we struggled with last year. Maybe not as much this year, but and the thing, looking at Sydney, their high ball winners seem to be their half. Wanganeen Miller, I know, plays a bit on the wing, and a bit half back, but him and Sinclair seem to be kind of running the show at this point in time. So, admittedly, I haven't watched a lot of St Kilda because this iteration seems far less boring.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to kind of shake a stigma when you're really boring earlier on. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we've been beaten by them down in Marvel for 5 years. So,
yeah, we've got a good record down at Marvel Stadium, and fairly handy record against St Kilda as well recently.
Yeah, particularly against St Kilda, I think.
Yeah.
So I think the only game we've lost against them was the one where Eric did his ACL, which was up at the Gabba. So because we won there last year with a really good defensive performance. The year before that was the game where, heading into finals, and Cam Rayner basically said, "Fuck this, I'm winning the game." Kicked 3 goals in the last quarter. We've had some Charlie magic over the years. So, yeah, we tend to do quite well against St Kilda down at Marvel. So, hopefully we can keep that up.
All right, let's have a talk about the man himself, who's celebrating his 200th game this week, and Mr. Froggy Lester.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm just trying to have a look through, I'm trying to have a look through, old articles of when he's signed contracts. But what I will go and say is that 2011 was his first year. He played 3 games. 19, 16, 14, 9, 19, 22, 15, and that was in 2018. 9 in 2019, 15, 17, 3 in 2022. And over the last 2 years, he's played 19 games. So that's brought him to 199 with his 200th coming up this week. I'm just, as I said, having a look back in some of these old articles of finding out when he signed these deals.
So you're looking at it going, he's had 13 articles of signing 13 1 year. I know he probably had a 5-year deal to begin with, but yeah, Froggy is an interesting one, much maligned for quite an amount of time.
And now I think everyone's favourite, just about, or one of.
An absolute stalwart for the team. And I think the big turning point for him was the level of responsibility he got when Fagan came to the club and then basically made him the reserves captain and the reserves defensive leader. I think it probably gave him, and I can't speak for him because I don't know him, but I think it probably gave him a slightly different outlook on what he could bring to the team. Because before then, he was just like this random utility that would pop up all over the place, and sometimes you'd be like, what's going on? But I think there's a lot that can be said for we've talked about this, having a defined role and knowing what to expect week to week. And I think that has absolutely exponentially served him in his career.
Yeah, 100%. And followed by 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, a delisting.
He's
and
still on the rookie list.
Yeah, I know, and a re-rookieing in amongst all that. It's crazy, but like no one deserves to hit 200, and I really hope the club make like a really big deal of it and use him as like inspiration for the game leading into this week. And like I'm looking forward to the Mike Whiting article that will hopefully come out on the AFL website. Just, you know, I'm sure if you asked anyone that didn't go for Brisbane, like who Ryan Lester was, they probably couldn't point him in a lineup. He's just one of those. He's silently gone about his business, no fuss, no muss, and now he's hit the 200. I'm super happy for the bloke because he is a really, really good bloke as well, as we all know.
I've not had the pleasure of meeting him, so I have to defer to you at your little meet and greets and whatnot.
Yeah, I've got one of those again tomorrow. Sponsor night tomorrow at Brighton Homes Arena, so that's something to look forward to. So, I've met Froggy a couple of times, and he's just a genuine fella, and really super stoked for him to hit the 200 this week. So, it's going to be big for him, and he's going to have his work cut out for him because St Kilda, I mean, they played West Coast last week, so read into that what you will. But a big win against Essendon to thwart their finals hopes, and Ross Lyon has said he's on a mission to be the Grinch and ruin a couple of teams' dreams that are looking to play finals. So I guess we obviously fall into that category.
Well, just remember that the Grinch didn't or doesn't have to ruin everyone's Christmas. I think, he can do everyone's, but not us.
Sure.
Like the people's first thing, Win every game there, just not the one against us.
Fine. I mean, I like it.
So, I just been looking, when you were talking about the twos, I've just been like kind of looking at the fixtures and stuff, and the teams around us, obviously, like Carlton, GWS, and Freo. So GWS and Freo also play each other, which is good. So I'm sitting there going, I don't necessarily expect us to win every game. I really hope we do, but I'm just looking for a bit of padding, to be honest. Bit of padding. But yeah, St Kilda, I don't know what to say. They look a lot better without Max King.
It's crazy how much difference. Like Max King's gone out of the team, and suddenly Saints look pretty alright.
Yeah, Max King and Ben King, the two, do they just seem a lot better than they are? I know Ben King's kicked like 50 goals, but
I mean, imagine how much. Like he could almost be leading the Coleman over the last 2 weeks if he had have kicked straight, because he had kicked 0 goals, 4 from 7 shots last week, and then he definitely had the ability to kick it, at least 4 this week.
Yeah, I think it was 0-7, 0-3 from 7, and then I think it was 1-4 from
it's crazy
6, because he had one that Witts caught on the line. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how someone that's kicked 50 goals in a season can kick that badly.
It is strange, isn't it?
But they picked it, like Brownie picked it. He's leaning back way too far, and you could tell, like every time he was going to kick the ball and you saw his back just go like straighten up, I was like, okay, this is going anywhere, and it was. So yeah, hopefully a bit of, well, I mean, Max King's not playing, so who gives a shit? But they've got Membry back. We talked about Carmen, different name. But less good than Jamie. And Caminiti, I think, played back against us earlier on when we
That's
played
right,
against
yeah.
them.
But I mean,
I think I erroneously said he was doing a negating job on Harris, but I just somehow had some sort of aneurysm. So let's not think about that. Yeah, they're back. So the weird thing is that if we look at, there was like a scissors, paper, rock of games at that time where our midfield got kind of towelled by St Kilda, and then Port Adelaide absolutely destroyed St Kilda's midfield. I think they might even have lost, maybe. I can't remember. And then we destroyed Port Adelaide.
yeah.
So it was like, how does that work? How does that work? But I guess it's just whatever day you wake up on, and hopefully it's a good day. We've got what? So 8-day break?
That's right, yeah.
I'm assuming that if we get ahead of St Kilda, the rhetoric from, I wonder if James Brayshaw will be commentating and he'll say that we've got a 3-day extra break or something like that, like he did for Port Adelaide and Carlton on Friday. And I don't know if you heard that, but as soon as Carlton went down, it was, Port Adelaide have had 2 days extra break. Carlton coming off 5 days. It's like, dude, they played 16 hours before them. It was less than 1 day and they travelled.
Yeah.
Like, how can you get that wrong? And then they doubled down on it after the game. Like, did you not look? So, I don't know how you can make those kind of mistakes, but
yeah, I don't understand.
It's just
that.
me.
I mean, working well for us is that there will be no Windhager this week, so he's out for a while with a hemi. So Lockie Neal will no doubt get some treatment, but it won't be from Windhager. Filippo probably out as well, likely. So, and obviously we know about Max King and Liam Henry who are out for the rest of the season. So they've got a couple of injuries, but so do we, obviously. So granted, we'll get Taris back, but we've spoken about the changes. There probably won't be too many more than that.
I think it's a matter of just going and doing the job.
Seems to be the motto each and every week, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is we know what our ceiling is, and it was very much that Port Adelaide game.
Yeah.
But we're not quite hitting that, or we're just winning games, and winning games is super, super good right at this point in time.
It really is.
I like winning games.
It is fun. It's definitely better than the first 7 weeks of the season. That's for sure.
Yeah, take the last 8 over the first 7.
All right, let's get into some questions for Crisp Communications. We've got a couple, not a huge amount this week, but a couple. We've got a couple that send through our speak pipe, which is fantastic. So always encourage people to do that if they can. Get to hear yourself on the show, which is great, I suppose. Maybe you don't like it, but I mean, we like hearing your voice on the show. We like having people on the show, so do definitely encourage you to do that. So our first one is coming from Ben.
Hey boys, just wanted to get your opinion on where this win ranks in terms of all of our wins for this season so far. Keep up the good work, boys. Love the podcast.
Well, thanks, Ben.
Was that Ben King?
That'd be funny.
Could be.
Yeah, I think it's underrated because, like I said, on paper, it's the sort of one where most people would look at it and go, "Oh yeah, Brisbane will win that." But there was plenty of reasons why we couldn't and shouldn't have won that game as well.
I think in terms of like a duo, the 2 wins over Gold Coast, if they were like, the Godfather Part 1 and Part 2, if it was its own little self-contained thing, would be like an absolute brilliant watch in terms of what it is. Like we talked about it backs against the walls in all of them.
Yeah.
And I really hope the photo that they took of them with the cup at the end of the game, I kind of jokingly said at the time, I'm like, they should just like Photoshop in the like Jerry Seinfeld brick wall behind it. Yeah, backs against the wall. It's a terrible joke, so don't worry about it. But in terms of this season, so what are the other ones that were also good? We've got the other Gold Coast one.
Yeah. I think
and the Port Adelaide one.
The Dogs win was pretty good. The first Melbourne win as well.
Yeah. The Dogs one's looking a lot better now as well. So it's a high tier win, and I think we've basically had great wins, and horror.
I mean, obviously the win against Richmond was great as well, but different kettle of fish.
That was
for obvious reasons. But 100 point win's always fun.
Yeah, I've kind of admittedly completely forgot about that.
It was forgettable, wasn't it? Which is a shame because you shouldn't be forgetting 100-point wins, but I guess it just didn't feel all that wholesome at the time, I suppose. But yeah,
it felt plenty wholesome. It was about as wholesome as your take on the Port Adelaide win, but it's just, I think the 2 Gold Coast wins is kind of a showing of, we've got plenty of talent, but it's the element of the grit and the sticking it out to sort of show a team that is as talented as Gold Coast. And we've seen it with GWS in the past. I think their current iteration has got a level of grit that the previous ones didn't. It shows that, the work rate really trumps the talent sometimes. So it's a testament to that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
But it ranks highly. It ranks in the top tier.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's also some other ones that are also in the top tier. It's hard to rank them. Like, don't make me rank them. It's like choosing between my children, which I don't have.
Now, we do have another question here from Julian. So, Julian A.
He's out all the way from Canberra.
All right.
G'day, Brisbane Lions fancast. With the Saints coming up and Caminiti and Sharman coming off two very good performances, do you think there is a chance that Hipwood will join Andrews in the backline on Sunday? Cheers.
Well, there we go. The question that we've danced around a little bit so far. It's definitely not off the table for Eric to stay down back. And you know what? Maybe Fagan's might be thinking, you know what, coming into finals, it may not be a bad thing to have that versatility and having someone to fill that hole if we need it again in a grand final, worst case scenario. So he might give him a couple of weeks at that, especially while Joyce and Payne are still out. But if it gets to the point where it's coming to our detriment, I suppose he can always make that change in game as well. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think it'll more than likely be Harris and Frog. And maybe Eric will flip down there, but maybe not play a whole game.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay either way. But I think I said with my changes that I would probably sooner them treat Harris. You know, Harris is almost like him plus more. I think he brings the best out of everyone as well when he's there. So, and I think between Starcevich playing a bit taller and Pryor, because how tall's Caminiti? He's what, 195?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
Charman's a giant, right?
I don't know.
Legit giant.
I don't think he's that tall. Like, I don't think he's as tall as, say, Max King.
Right. Okay. And Membry's just a workhorse as well. So Membry's got the guile. I think maybe you could send Starcevich to Membry and then Froggy and Harris. And our captain. Got his fucking name. I think I'd be sticking with Hipwood forward this week.
Okay. Well,
Not sticking with it. Alternating back to the status quo of Hipwood being forward.
I guess we'll have to bloody wait and see when the team rolls out, because, I mean, he named Joe Danaher at fullback as a bit of a goof, which was funny.
He's such a bastard. I really like the one that someone put on our Discord that was like, how did things get here? And it was like fullback, Dane Zorko, Joe Danaher.
Yeah.
Loved it. So it's good. So we're playing the last game of the week on Sunday, hey?
Yeah. Got to get used to
cool.
that. We do have a couple more questions. Kipper.
I like that you say we got to get used to that. Our two games following are both on Saturdays, with our remaining game with a TBC. So
I don't know.
We entirely don't need to get used to that.
I feel like just the second half of the fixture came out, and all I saw was a bunch of like afternoon Sunday games. I was like, all right, well, I guess that's our luck now. But I guess it was only 3 or something.
We had the stretch of 3 in a row: the Adelaide Eagles and Sydney, and it's kind of the Eagles one. They're always on Sundays anyway, so it's kind of neither here nor there. So incidental.
Kipper on Twitter. G'day, boys. First time, long time. Lovely. Is it any coincidence that Cam Rayner's form comes with having a new lady friend these days? Looks like he's happy, and it's turned him into a beast on the field. Now, I don't know the first thing about Cam Rayner's dating life. Obviously, that it's been under the microscope a little bit this year, but I can't say that I've been following him. But hey, if that is what's working, then shoot on, son.
Yeah, I can't remember how much I said earlier on in the year about, that. So I'll plead the fifth. I'm going to go no comment on that.
At the end of the day, he's playing good footy, and I don't know what you can put that down to, but if he knows, keep doing that thing, and keep playing good footy.
Beauty.
James Barron, who is a regular contributor now, which is great. It's good to have him on board. The Lions are playing with much more mongrel these past few months. Who and what has been the catalyst for this welcome change?
I reckon it's the knowledge that they realized that they'd almost fucked up really hard in the first part of the season.
Yeah. I think
And they were like, oh God, we got to pull this one out.
the mid-season bye obviously came at the right time, and I joked that they needed to do an Ed Kerno's farm type operation. Now, who knows what actually went on in the bye, and maybe when the documentary comes out, we'll all find out. But
if it turns out that they ended up on like Daniel Rich's fishing yacht that I don't even know he has or doesn't have, but I know he just likes fishing. If that's what happens, it capsized and they like to swim back to like Peel Island. Can someone give me some like writing credits for life? Because that would be great. But no, the Ed Kerno wasn't it? No, I don't think it was Ed Kerno. I think wasn't it the
Yeah, no, it was Ed Kerno's farm that Carlton went to last year. Yeah,
maybe I remember Chera talking about Ed Kerno's farm.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
So whether something happened in the bye, maybe they all sat down and had a real hard look at the first half of the season. They maybe flash back to the heartbreak of the grand final last year and what they wanted to be known for. Maybe it's that, I don't know, we've had to deal with the adversity of all the injuries and all that stuff in the first half of the year, or maybe it was just hey, it's time to get to work. Don't know.
So the bye was after the Hawthorn game, right?
Yeah. And we have not looked back since the bye, 8 in a row since then.
So our form started to look all right. I don't know, I reckon I'm onto something about the game structures of playing sort of more or less on Saturdays and Sundays every week, because our form patch is like Friday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, and we were fucked. And then it's just like weekend games for the rest of the season. So maybe that's the big brain play. Drop a few early, have the fixtures just play on rotisserie on a Saturday night forever. You get your week nice and structured.
Yeah, maybe.
Because, we were wondering, there were things being said, and we were unsure whether it was a slip of the tongue earlier on in the season or whether it was actuality, where, we even heard Chris Fagan after a Thursday night game say, we'll look at the tape on Monday. It's like, you give yourself four days to look at the tape, and then by that time, captain's runs on Wednesday to play again on Thursday. Like, surely that can't be what's happening.
Yeah.
But maybe it is. I don't know how these things work. I kind of, early on in the season, I wanted more sort of Malcolm Blight style. We lost, and I went home and watched the tape on repeat, chain smoking, to try and figure out how we lost that game. It's like, I want that level of commitment to the cause. And I feel like with slightly less lung health issues, we've got that level of effort from the players.
What I will say, and it was around the time of the bye where, and we had to speak about it reluctantly on the podcast every week, of trying to defend Chris Fagan, and there was a big group of sack Fagans out there, and he was pretty consistent and staunch in his message of, hey, things are going all right, the numbers are looking good, we just need to fix our, inside 50s in our scoring, and we'll be all right. So, the man knows what's up.
Yeah, I think there's that. There's also the absolutely bonkers what the hell is going on this season. Because
That's
any
a
other
big part of
season,
it,
we're
yeah.
not getting close to the top two. Like,
Yeah.
Strangely, when I said that I thought we'd finish third, that was entirely wishful thinking. But it was also like prefaced with the idea of just like Sydney and GWS winning like basically all their games forever.
Yeah.
And like just sitting top two on 1 million points with there being like an absolute dogfight behind. As it is, there's just a dogfight behind. So please, can we finish second? That would be amazing.
Well, even Sydney is being brought back into that dogfight. They're, they've lost 4 of their last 5. So, they still look good. Aside from the week just gone, they've still looked good. So, it is a crazy season, and it is almost criminal that, we've gone on this run and gone from 13th to 2nd, whereas Hawthorn, as I said, arguably played the better footy during that time, just happened to drop a game by a point in almost impossible circumstances. They did get shown up by Geelong, but they've barely made any sort of they sat on 13th for so long, and they've only just got up to 9th now. So, it's crazy, just that difference. that difference, and a difference between a win and a loss. Last week before, it was like, oh, we win, we're a top 4. We lose, we're down to 9th or something like that. So it is just a crazy season, yeah. So
I mean, look at how Essendon have absolutely nosedived. So it's pretty weird, and I think that there's going to be some pretty heavy hitters coming from the bottom half of the 8, because I think, well, look at it in the form teams at the moment. You're looking at it being us in terms of results form, not necessarily
form, yeah.
Play. I think Fremantle are playing pretty well.
Yep.
And then the two obvious ones being David King's favourite, the Western Bulldogs, and Hawthorn. You're not really wanting to play Bulldogs or Hawthorn come finals time. I guarantee you that.
No. No, thank you. Especially Hawthorn, who even when they're not tearing up, beat us.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, that's not... Maybe it's like a reverse Kennett curse, and it'll come into fruition here. So, but yeah, look, if you're sitting there and if you're finishing 5th or 6th, you're possibly in a bit of trouble, I reckon. Or if you're losing that first qualifying final, you're in a bit of strife.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the Jack Rewalt thing about Hawthorn was so funny, like 6 or so weeks ago. I don't know if you heard what he said. It was like, they can't win it, but they might.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's pretty much on the money for a lot of teams at this point in time. But yeah, I Hawthorn last week, gotta say, not a fan of their barbers this week. It really was a bit annoying, gotta say. Jai Newcomb and Ginnivan both lost the long locks. Don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, especially Newcomb. He's synonymous.
Newcomb was such a throwback.
Yeah.
Like, he was such a throwback of just like, kind of like, I don't know, the Brisbane people, I understand this. When you sort of, growing up in the 90s and when you'd like flick over to like NRL, which didn't happen often, it always just looks like your dad was running around and he was about 45. Like Wally Lewis and stuff like that. You're just like, oh man, these guys are like proper men. And now everyone looks like they're about 18 because they are. So John Newcomb went from that to looking like a weird schoolboy, and I don't like it. So Ginnivan the same.
One more question before we wrap things up for another week. Paul, the Saints nearly got us with their run last time. They seem to be playing that way lately. Do you expect this on Sunday? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, he's been talking all year about putting sizzle into the game, or whatever rhetoric that Ross Lyon's been using, and yeah, it did almost get us last time we played them, and like I said, they've won their last 2 fairly convincingly. I don't expect any different this time when we come up against them, but we're obviously a better opposition than West Coast or Essendon have been the last couple of weeks.
So my question to you is, before we played them last time, the rhetoric was all, they're so negative, how bad is this game going to be?
Yes, that's right.
Are we now going into this one being like, watch out for their run and it's going to be super negative?
Or...
If you flipped the 2 games, like,
I can't see him
the game hasn't been played, so I'm talking shit.
I can't see him reverting back to a negative sort of defensive masterclass gear. That I think he'll just.
It would be funny though. It would be very fitting, and then that way, in a weird you could swap the 2 games and be like, this one was played here and this one was played here, and it would like make narrative sense.
Yep.
So, I think that level of madness is not above Ross Lyon. So, will it be free flowing? Possibly. Will it be a coagulated mess under the roof? Also possibly.
Strap yourselves in. It's going to be one of those annoying ones where the teams come out on Thursday and then again on Friday, and we probably won't really know until...
I hate that, eh?
Yeah. But we will get an injury update tomorrow regardless, and might have a clear idea of where Darragh Joyce stands, and probably Jack Payne as well, because the update last week was that he was progressing really well, and so he was like sort of 3 to 4 weeks.
Are we assuming he's just been laid out on like a medical bed at the airport the whole time, just having a geeze?
Maybe. I don't know about the airport, but true.
He loves his planes.
That's right. Very well done.
He's like, oh, there's that one, goes there. Here's this one. It's got like a turbine engine.
Just good plane chat.
Turbine engine. That's a thing, isn't it? Any of you aeronautical engineers, hit me up.
All right, well, it is a big week. It is Froggy's 200th, so if you are in Melbourne, try and get along to the game. I don't know, wear a frog mask or something. I hope the club do something really big for him because it is going to be great.
Frog mask is a good shout. We could do a frog march in a frog mask. Although that's probably not good on the old knees.
Probably not.
Wear green for frog.
I like it.
You heard it here first. There's going to be about 3 people that turn up wearing green. And everyone will be like, is it St. Patrick's Day? No, it's not. It's Frog Day. Or you'll get someone real technical being like, actually, most frogs aren't green.
Yeah, well,
So,
I don't want to hear about that.
nah, fuck them. Wear green for frog.